Hello YouTubers, Alaska Prepper here. Ladies and gentlemen, this video is the word on the streets, meaning that I've compiled a few emails that I've received over the last week or so. I'm going to share those with you right now.
Sortons vite de l'OTAN. Sortons vite de l'OTAN. Sortons vite de l'OTAN. Brexit! Brexit!
You are not alone and people are waking up. This email right here says, this is not shared in the mainstream media. They, whoever is behind these atrocities, want global chaos. And they sent me a video of protests that are going on right now. So I went ahead and expanded on it a little bit. And let me just show you how many protests, major protests, are going on all over the world. This here is a protest that is going on in Paris, and it says another massive protest against NATO and the EU on the streets of Paris. And I'll leave the link to this article on a pinned comment so that you can come and click on each of these. And these are not just protests of 5 or 6 people. It's hundreds and thousands of people, ladies and gentlemen. Not even hundreds, thousands of people protesting that the EU countries need to get out of NATO and out of the EU to become their own sovereign countries again. Why is that? Because in my opinion, let me know if it's different than what I'm saying right here, is because the EU pretty much is governed by non-elected officials. So these countries that joined the EU, they've pretty much given up their sovereignty, and they are going by the playbook of people that were never elected by the people that elected their own specific governments depending on what countries they live in. Here's another one. Another massive protest against NATO and the EU in the streets of Paris, France today. Here's a second one. Mass protests continue in Moldova, calling for the removal of pro-EU regime of Maya Sandu. The Western media has completely blacked out these mass protests in Moldova. They are peddling the 3-letter acronym nonsense instead of blaming the big R for this. On October 28, local time, Czech people took to the streets to protest and demonstrate, advocating to withdraw from the EU and NATO. Oh my goodness. Mass protests in Prague for peace. I think that's how you pronounce it, Prague or Prague. For peace, elections, and right not to freeze for NATO. Threat of protests are erupting all over Europe again. EU, NATO, inflation, politicians, governmental control, arms sales, etc., about which mainstream media is completely silent. Like I said, we are the silent majority, ladies and gentlemen. We, those that want peace, those that want sovereignty, not only national sovereignty, but personal sovereignty, freedom. We are the silent majority. And in the end, good will prevail over evil. Thousands of Germans to end sanctions on the big R. They want to remain neutral. Europeans don't want to starve and freeze for these people. EU media censors these demonstrations. They want a big W followed by an A followed by an R. And it's not just the media that wants it, because that's great for media. Think about it. It's great that W followed by an A followed by an R is great for media. Right? Because they get all the coverage and they get all the ads and all that kind of stuff. But it's the governments, ladies and gentlemen, that want these wars. It's what gives them their power. Rome, Italy protests NATO and their sanctions on the big R. This is again in Germany. Hamburg, peace and freedom demonstration and protest against government restrictions, mandates, anti-NATO, inflation, cost of living, and energy. Everyone around the world is protesting, and eventually there's going to be a tipping point. We live in very interesting times. And I didn't pull this up, but the video that I was sent by the person who sent the email was of protests in Haiti. Protests in Haiti that are protesting against the, I believe it's the US and the Canadian government being there. The US for sure. I'm not sure if the Canadian one is specific. It's right. but it's protests against the U.S. being there. They don't want the U.S. there, ladies and gentlemen. It's like I've told you all before. The world is tired of being policed by one entity just because that one entity holds the power of the reserve currency of the world. One day it will be gone away, and that is why you must prepare for the transition when the US dollar is finally gone to whatever new paradigm we arrive in. And this is an email that someone sent me with an article attached to it from Natural News. The day that Europe died, BASF announces permanent output reductions. I do believe that BASF is like a chemical company that is spread out throughout, I believe, the EU, but let's read on for a quick second. Breaking news, BASF has announced they are partially shuttering operations in Germany and moving capacity to China. Wow. Today is the pivot point. Europe dies from here forward, and it doesn't recover for generations. It's done. Almost nobody realizes this yet, but the dominoes are already falling. He continues to say Europe is rapidly plunging into a continent on collision course with total collapse. No industry, no supply chains, no energy, no metals, no fertilizer, and no food. The first world status of Europe will be a distant memory after just 2 or 3 winters without food and energy. And once Europe's industrial infrastructure is shuttered, there's no easy way to bring it back online. And that is 100% true. Look at the United States. Look at what happened with us sending out our manufacturing back in the mid to late 90s. We just pretty much exported all of our manufacturing, not thinking of what would happen in the future should we come about some crisis like we're having right now. What manufacturing do we have here in the United States? And how easy would it be to bring all that manufacturing back? It may be easy to write the policies, but to do the actual physical work of actually building, that's going to take years, ladies and gentlemen. And this one, ladies and gentlemen, states FBI investing millions in new social media surveillance software. So I went ahead and clicked on the link. And right here it says $27 million is the FBI's total investment in Babel X. What is Babel X, ladies and gentlemen? I'll leave the link to this in a pinned comment so you can come and revisit it if you like. But pretty much they'll be able to monitor every single thing that you do, even when your phone is off. So ladies and gentlemen, this is where we're headed. That's what I've always said, that we are in a cycle of good versus evil, and that before it gets any better, it's going to get worse. And that's why we prepare, because there will be a fight. Eventually, there will be a fight. Not because I want one, but because history says so. All right, so this person sent me this email, and they say, I received an email from EDF, which is an energy company in the UK. They are offering vulnerable customers a deal in which they switch to pay-as-you-go and sign up for smart meters. They get £100 on their account. So if they switch over for pay-as-you-go and they get a smart meter in their home, they give them a £100 rebate to their electricity, to their electricity bill. This is just a way, ladies and gentlemen, for them to later on, when they need to, restrict whatever electricity that household is using. It's happened here in the United States. I believe it was in Colorado. There was like 25 or 27,000 homes whose temperature was set remotely from the energy company because they had these smart meters. So just make sure that you understand what you're getting yourself into when you write into any contracts. This one is pretty interesting. Just the other day, I received a tax refund check from the federal government 7 months after I filed. The check was a little over $1,000, and I took it to the blank National Bank, whose corporate office is in Ohio. The bank made $500 immediately available, but held on to the remainder for at least a day. This bank just started this practice a few months ago, and it's an indicator to me that either the bank is insolvent or the U.S. federal government is insolvent. I guess you can make a case for one or the other. That is kind of weird that a bank gets a check from the federal government, right, an official federal government check, and they don't trust it enough to release the funds immediately. I would think that a check from the federal government should be just as good, I would say, in my opinion, just as good as a cashier's check. He continues to say, it's possible that things are farther along than is generally known and the economy is falsely propped up. I would say that that is a true statement. It's been long speculated that the economy will be reset with a bang or with a whimper. Indications are that it is happening with a bang. And he actually makes some pretty good recommendations here. Get any dental or medical work done now. I agree with that 100%. Shore up your supplies. Fill in those gaps, ladies and gentlemen. Update your plans. Tune up and harden your vehicles, such as protecting your catalytic converters and gas tanks. Get everything in the ready status and stay mobile, as if every time you go out, expect never to return. Wow. We're living in that kind of a time that someone would say something like this. As if every time you go out, you don't expect to return, just in case something happens while you're out. And this, ladies and gentlemen, will be the last one. My husband works for a big oil company, and they told me to leave the name of the oil company out of this. They had a big meeting this week and are predicting oil to be at $135 per barrel by February of 2023, or maybe sooner. We will see higher gas prices than we did this past summer. You know, I can bring this up right quick. I think I messed up. I didn't mess up. I was just wrong. Plain and simple. I was just wrong. Earlier this year, I said that it's very possible that we see oil prices by the end of this year, 2022, at $150 to $200 per gallon. And we're not even anywhere close to it. Thank goodness. However, if you think about it, even though the oil prices haven't risen to those levels, look at how much we're paying for fuel. What we're paying for fuel is equivalent to what oil used to be at about $140, $150 a barrel back in, I think it was 2008 or so. So even though oil is not as high as it was back in, I think around 2008, 2009, it was about $140 a barrel. We're still paying prices at the pump that are pretty much equivalent to that price in oil. All right, ladies and gentlemen, a quick one today. Just wanted to go over these emails. I want to thank you very much to every one of you that sent some intel in. If you have any intel whatsoever, send it to my Intel address and my Intel address alone. My other email address, the SFC one, is just the one that I get for people that maybe have questions or help with anything. But this is just for intel. I do appreciate you sending it, and as long as I keep receiving them, I'll save them up for a week or two, and then I'll go ahead and put out another word on the street video. Other than that, have a great day, ladies and gentlemen. God bless every one of you.